Hi there, and welcome to a new episode of Impact Talks. Today we have Nuhaan with us from Microsoft. She's retail industry lead for Western Europe. I hope I got the title right because I've been trying for a while. Laura, please introduce yourself. Where can the people know you from, and what do you do?
Well, thank you so much for having me in this Impact Talks. I'm very happy to be here with you, and I think you did a great job introducing me. I work for Microsoft in the management consulting services part, which really focus on helping companies in retail and also telco to accelerate their digital transformation. So it's the what of technology, but also the how. And where people know me from, maybe a little bit more, is I have a background in business economics, worked for management consulting, but also startups. 10 years in Silicon Valley, did my own female-led startup, and now for 3 years working with Microsoft.
That's actually something unique to this podcast because you are the first returning person. We've had from, obviously you were on our stage in the main event. And in there, we kind of went a little bit deeper into who you are and obviously your take. The one thing I remember kind of regretting, and I had 50 questions about that topic alone, was your Silicon Valley experience. So there's a transition I definitely want to cover during this talk about who you are as a person, how you go from an entrepreneur and your entire digital marketing experience and then take that to a Microsoft. Especially as Microsoft, I remember when I met you, Microsoft was going through the transition of being cool again, and now I think it's kind of established that it's becoming quite cool, especially with the new CEO. But I wanted to go kind of back and maybe hear your story so that people really understand who you are. How did you start with this whole entrepreneurial background, and where did this whole marketing start from, and how does Silicon Valley come into that story?
So how many hours do we have?
Well,
no, I'm just kidding.
It'll be, you can take your time and, we'll keep it short.
Yeah, no, so I think entrepreneurial spirit is something that you have or not, right? There's a curiosity about exploring and doing new things, and as well being focusing on customers and needs and really wanting to add to it. So that's my entrepreneurial spirit, I have to say. I started selling painted stones in the market in Spain, as I'm also half Spanish, as you know, when I was a kid. But then I went so I think my life has been, my career has been always from contrast, hit refresh, as Satya Nadella as well says, over and over every time. I studied business economics, but I was thinking of going to the Academy of Art, which is left brain, right brain. Then I started big, fast-moving consumer goods. I thought then that I needed to learn more, so it's also always wanting to learn more. I went to work with PricewaterhouseCoopers as management consulting because I could see many different companies, and I think one of the cool stuff or the interesting thing is what can you learn from other industries, companies, and cross over and leverage these experience to do better, right? I did that for a few years, and then the adventure came as well for new cultures. As I'm half Spanish, half Dutch, I could go to Silicon Valley, and there as well worked with many scale-ups in
Wait, what do you mean
roles.
You had the opportunity to go to Silicon Valley? Did someone invite you, or you bought a ticket, one-way trip?
You want to no. So the thing was, it's a funny story because I first had I always want to go abroad. So I had an opportunity to work in Chile, but then my husband said Chile, no, I don't speak Spanish, and he came back with a counter offer. So that was the opportunity. He had a job in Silicon Valley, so I said, okay, well, not sure, but let's try. Let's go there. So I joined, and of course I joined. We went together. And then found different opportunities to work there as well. And the plan was to stay there for 2 years, but we liked it so much that we stayed for 10 years. So that's that part, and yeah.
Yeah, so continue. So how did you get a job there? What was happening exactly?
Yeah, so in the beginning, because I had like to go, you have to get your driver's license. I got like this stamp, like an alien not supposed to work here. And that's because I went with my husband, and of course I always had my own jobs and things like that. So that was I don't like that. So I really went like looking for what could I do, and I came across like one of the investors that was like thinking about that time, and it was very cool, the BlackBerry. So he was like working with like BlackBerry, like the devices and security, and together we said like, well, let's start a BlackBerry enterprise community, like this whole learning experiences over the internet. And this is the way I got my own visa, which I was very happy with, so my independency. And from that on, I could like start like doing all like different jobs with different scale ups.
What do you mean with learning experiences? So you guys were just like creating apps on the BlackBerry and...
No. So it was really like a user community. And this was like early 2002, 2003, to really have like IT, like CIOs of different companies share experience, how they were like implementing, deploying BlackBerry from as well, getting people together. So really a community, a platform.
Okay, and so what was happening after that? Because I can imagine once the iPhone came out, it became less relevant.
Yeah, well, it's already like there was one thing with it as well. Great idea, but it's very depending on one company at RIM, the BlackBerry brand owner. So this was already like one kind of an obstacle. So even before the iPhone, I did it for 2 years. It was pretty successful with creating, like getting the right people, having user communities, chapters all over the US. But then I stepped away from it, and some people really regret it as well.
Wait, so your job was to build the communities behind that online community, online group, I mean?
Yeah, so from everything, like really like having the business development, ensuring the relation with the BlackBerry and with RIM, everything at that time. But this is a long time ago.
Yeah. Okay, so...
But you're right. So it was for 2 years. It was like my jumping, my jumping board into other startups, companies. I went to work with Good Technology as well, which
So
is like was
can you tell us more?
the competitor.
Can you tell us more about what happened? And just go through the story.
Yeah, so Good Technology was really helping with strategic business development, which was very interesting to see because it was already like a little bit further than a startup, right? 200 people. It was a very like passionate group of people working together. I really liked the spirit of like the startups, like the whole passion, purpose to work together and create new things. Somebody asked me a few days ago as well, like, what really makes it different in Silicon Valley? And I think the drive and to like the openness, the growing, like the idea, like be open for new ideas, try it, experimental, is really at that time was different. I mean, it's like we getting there in the Netherlands and in Europe, which I'm happy with, but that really made a big difference. And I was responsible for strategic business development, and there's also like all kind of things on like how to grow the businesses also. Did that for a while, then went to Health Hero, and you say like, what is Health Hero? But this was telehealth and telemonitoring. They were like offering devices for people with chronic diseases to like, and this is before iPhone, before iPad, mind that. So it was like devices to bring in the home for people that were chronically ill, and then they had to answer 3 questions every day. So as well, like to send alerts to the doctor to make sure that people were like getting the right treatment and don't have to go to the emergency room, for instance. And the interesting part is that this was in 2005, or I don't know the years exactly, but look at where we are now with telehealth. It's like now because of COVID, I think, if you look at like, I mean, it's very sad that COVID happened and many things happened that are not good. But what I think is the brighter side of it is that it has been like breaking through habits and enabling digital acceleration, digital transformation, and also in telehealth. And then I'll stop about, because I don't want to like be boring about like all the experience. But from the health buddy, one of the things that we saw it the health hero, health buddy they called it, was that like people were perceiving it as a watchdog, right? Like you get this device in the house and you feel like somebody's watching you. So this is where my idea came from. My own startup was saying like, well, let's start with the social interaction first. Like that, on older people, it was mostly older people. If they are sick, they should like first have like an idea like to want to connect with the computer and have a social connection first, and then we can introduce help like remote assistance, medical reminders. And so what we did is, it was called Family Link, like bridge between elderly and the younger people and bridge the digital device. And even, you said, like it's funny, you said about the iPad, we even like filed for a patent, we didn't get it because the iPad and the iPhone were already in the make, but we had like this idea about like a wireless touch frame, just easy with 4 key features that like what's the weather today, or what's the weather at my son's place, like play a little bit of bridge or something like that with my grandkids. It was all there, and yeah.
So it was a basic iPad before the iPads, but
exactly.
the patent wasn't
yeah. And like really like making it like very functional. And I still think also this was in 2007. You still see like ideas like this coming up. So for me. And that's maybe not a bridge to the technology. I think it's with technology we always want to focus on like what's new, what can we do more, and what's there. But I think it's a lot is as well about the execution and making it happen, make it real. Because I just mentioned telehealth, the bridging, like empowering seniors to do more at home. These are all things that are still like not going too fast.
And then after 10 years, obviously you left Silicon Valley. My main question is, well, twofold actually, just genuine interest I always had when I met you at first. Why would you leave Silicon Valley? Because you went from 2 years to 10 years. Seems like things were going good. And also, why did you extend that? Why did you go from 2 to 10 years? Like, what was so good about Silicon Valley that made you want to stay?
Let me start with that one first, right? I think for me it was kind of like the paradise in the sense of like or smart or open-minded people from everywhere. So a lot of like diversity, different cultures, willing to do better or new ideas, and really like entrepreneurship. And the other thing I liked is the easy of like access to people. If you had a good idea, the next morning you could have coffee with the CEO of a company. So it's also this ecosystem thinking, and just let's do it. The mentality of like getting things done, but still like think about it, I really enjoyed. Then also the weather, of course, and the landscape. It reminds me a lot of Spain. It's beautiful outdoors. It's open. You can go running for hours. So it was a combination, but definitely the entrepreneurship, the mindset, and the willingness to do things was really the reason that we stayed for a longer time. Yeah.
And so, what changed that eventually after 10 years? Back to now.
Yeah, so I think it goes back to the reason, like I mentioned, like why going, right? I said like learning, exploring new cultures. At a certain time, if you stay somewhere long, it becomes normal again, or it becomes more into habits. And we were living in a great neighborhood, but it was as well like, okay, do I want to stay here till like I'm very old, or I do want to see new things. Another thing was like I have 3 kids, and they were like growing up in this beautiful area, but it was also like that was their world. It was always always positive, big cars, people successful. It was just one side of society, and I also wanted them to see other parts of the world, and also to start to know Europe better, like to get to know Europe better. So that is another one. And then my mom, very personal, living she's like I said, like half Spanish or Catalan, living in the Netherlands, and becoming older as well. And then California is very, very far away.
Yeah, I get that. Okay, but that
Yeah,
seems
and
like
maybe
personal.
and the business reason was as well like using what I learned, because I was like I learned a lot of like the mentality, the startups with the VCs and everything. I wanted to bring that as well back to the Netherlands and help innovating here in Europe.
So that's actually my next question. When you came back, there's like an entire history before you even started Microsoft. So how was that transition like? How was the mentality between your new Silicon Valley approach and the Netherlands, and how did you start your career back up after you came back?
Yeah, so it was really like starting all over again, right? If you leave 10 years, sometimes people ask me like, hey, should I go abroad? Sometimes I advise that like, well, realize that if you stay longer than 5 years, when you come back, you have to start almost from scratch again, right? Because of course your friends will know you, but you're not like you're forgotten a bit. So it was like all like starting up again. But like what I done in Silicon Valley is helping companies with marketing, with business development, with strategy. I started to continue that as well in the Netherlands, but had to start from zero. So that's entrepreneurship, right? Like how do you do that? Like reaching out to your network. Also like doing research, like having like interviews with people, like building up again, presenting on the things that I felt passionate about. Like one of the themes is marketing and sales alignment, and now it should be even broader, right? And that only how can you improve that, metrics to show where you can improve into the marketing and sales process. But it was, the first year, I have to say, I found it very, very hard to be back. Because
Why?
it's, well, you have to get like really like used to the weather. No, kidding. But it was, I think as well, like, like starting from scratch is fine, but as well, like have the children adjust again to a new world, where my daughter said like, well, Mom, why are we here? There are no trees to climb in, there's no sun, and there are only grumpy old grandmas in the supermarket. Always, but this is of course just one from she was 11 at that time. But I think it's very important as well, like your kids, they need time to land again. They were like not happy, and if your kids are not happy, it's very hard to be like easygoing yourself. But after the first year, of course, and that's with everything, resilience, like it turns like good again. And so I don't regret at all to be back.
But that's actually a legit question, which I'm pretty sure a lot of people that come from warmer climates can relate to. You know, your kids come and they say, I mean, the Netherlands, I love the Netherlands, one of the best countries. I'm having a hard time thinking about moving to America because that's the next stage of our company. But I want to stick here. So there's a lot of benefits. I love even the government and stuff like that. But at the same time, your child is kind of right. I mean, she said that, you know, everything she said, the grumpy grandmas in the supermarket, the weather, it's technically true. And if you're living in like Silicon Valley where those things are not happening, then it's kind of like, don't you want to go back? Or what is it that keeps you here outside of the personal reasons?
Yeah, so I think as well, like, the US is very nice, but of course it changed over the years, as we all know, right? I came back in 2011, and it's a different time now. So I think even, like, also my youngest now says, I'm not so sure if I want to go back right now. But no, I think that the key reason is that, like, there's still, like, a lot to do as well in Europe. And it's amazing if you look at how our startup community grew over the last years as well. I think we are now even number 3, right, from Europe perspective.
Yeah, it's like top 5 for sure.
Yeah, so from a business perspective, that's very exciting. As well, like from where my core business is like digital transformation and helping companies. That's also very exciting because it's like a lot to do. So I think no, it's okay to be here, and I don't want to go back now at this moment.
So let's continue kind of the story because I think it's very important for the context. So you start back up, and then obviously you did a lot with marketing and biz dev. So when you started back up after that first year, I mean, I saw a lot of things happening from you wrote a book and you were speaking a lot. So tell me a little bit about that story just before Microsoft approached you.
Yeah, so I think well, like when you're like doing like consulting on board level for strategic marketing and sales or innovation, you need to practice what you preach as well, right? And you need to bring value to the table. So what I saw at that time was like really a need for digital selling or social selling, and this again is also like many years back at that time. And I wrote the book. It was kind of still of like pretty new. It was in 2014, I think, I published the book. So I started like to really invest and as well like the learnings and put it to the paper or like to the digital and wrote that book, which really was helpful because then it's as well like your brand a bit of like, okay, this is what I could do, right? And I wrote another book a while back on the balanced scorecard, but then for sales, which also has been when I started my own consulting firm. It was very like useful as well to see like, hey, these are my thoughts and this is how I bring it into practice. So that's one thing, but also always thinking, and I see that with you as well, how you work is thinking in finding the right partners, not like only do it yourself, work with others to make it happen. So also worked with Gerard Schweindecker from as well like sales company to join his conferences, so like different ways of finding partners to work together.
What do you mean finding partners? What was the partnership then exactly? How was the collaboration? Was it like you became one company or?
No, so not that far, like fluid partnership. Yeah, because I think in the sense of, well, maybe partner is a too strong word. Really finding collaborations, like really team up and work together when you have a goal. Like from Gerard is his name. His goal was as well like to bring like the knowledge and the experience from the US to Europe, and to help with scaling up, or like not like leveling up sales and marketing. I had the same goal, so I helped as well. Like they did this great conference every year in the US. Like, why don't you bring it as well to Europe? And then you start like really thinking about it and see how you can participate. So that was one thing.
Great. How open was somebody like that for collaboration? Because I'm noticing it's like hit and miss. Sometimes you try to collaborate with people and people really want to, and then sometimes people are like, no, I don't want to, I want to do it by myself. Or like that's the impression I seem to get when I ask for like collaborations, as you put it. So how open was it for you?
So in this sense, like it was okay, because I mean, like sometimes it's as well like if you bring the idea, then you're already part of the game, right? Often, but sometimes they want to do like they take the idea as well. But this was like as well like, hey, like why are you not like bringing this to Europe, and then you can start collaborating on it. But of course, there are also other examples where it doesn't go that easy, and that's also one of the things with partnerships. I always say like, well, let's first do something together, and then we can like structure it more, instead of like having many talks, trying to put it like on all like regulations and rules on paper. First, like see if there's a good match, if the ways you work are complementary, and after that you can make it more firm.
So pretty much small project first before we start discussing like big collaborations.
Yeah, or even it can be a big project together, but it's like before you really make it like a more permanent. Nothing is permanent in this life, but yeah.
Maybe, obviously, we have a lot of startups as well listening. Maybe you can give some tips on how you found those partnerships.
Yeah, so I wrote a book about digital selling, right? Social selling. So no, I really think it is about like thinking in value, like where can you add value and where can somebody add value to your proposition. So it's really as well like thinking ahead, like okay, what are the logical partners, and make it very clear then what your proposition is.
Do you have an example story from like your past or like current working at Microsoft or Silicon Valley or anything from your career where you can like shape that, what you're saying right now?
Yeah, well, I think from like the one example was already like with Gerhard from like really like I came with the idea, so like that was really a successful formula in the US, how they were doing this with big events and getting like engagements, and then proposing to help with like launching it like a certain event in Europe, where already it is like you propose it, you bring the idea, and so on. Another thing was, but that like did like we started the exploring was around corporate vision, very good company on like as well like sales messaging, sales propositions. And then it's first reaching out with again like why should we team up, and they were more this was as well like based on Europe versus the US. They were as well starting to expand to Europe, where my value as well from the company I had was helping with understanding local markets and like see how we could team up. We teamed up, but then things changed and it didn't work out. But again, it's about finding like thinking like who is complementary, having a strong like sell yourself. That would be my advice. Because I'm thinking it as well like okay, what's in for you, what's in for them, especially for them. Come with a firm proposal, and the proposal again should be just like low barrier, but like hey, I think we could do this. And what I mentioned on digital selling, you can start like easy relations through LinkedIn, to Twitter, to digital, like already like making yourself known before they just like think, hey, what is this Laura Nuhaan doing? And thinking about like also your own brand, or like how do you build trust, because in the end it's all about trust. So that was for me like the books that I wrote, the articles, just showing that I was passionate and that I was knowledgeable about the topics that I wanted to talk to them.
I agree, especially every stage of that, like doing your research, finding the proposal is always looking good, but I think definitely what I'm taking away from it is also making the proposal very low barrier of entry, which I've seen in the past with startups that they tend to, and I've made these mistakes as well, where just it has to be like big right away. I would maybe also even add to that, like to have options where if they want to go big, you have the option to go big. But what do you think about having like options when you create proposals?
Yeah, no, so I'm totally like with you. Like I think you need to think big. That's another one. Like if you think too small, then you are like spending a lot of time in things that maybe will not like ever turn into this big dream. So nothing wrong with as well like like having already the bigger picture in mind. Like this is where I or we want to go and how we could like join each other, and but then make it small. So that's and the same is with digital transformation as well, right? You need to have this bigger vision, but then like if you only think big, then maybe things don't happen or they take way too long, and you're already like behind. But then make it just small and create small steps towards that vision. And the same with a partnership. You can, and if they want to go in right big, but then still also the risk is for the startup as well, right? Like, I mean, do you want to go big? Because maybe it doesn't turn out as you wanted, what you were expecting.
So I want to go deeper into that because one of the things, and that was also one of the things that we saw a lot in the feedback forums, a lot of people were very inspired when you were talking on the main stage. And I think one of the things that makes that possible is that you are not ashamed, I would say, to think big, which is in Europe a thing, which I encounter less in America, which, some shame would be great there as well. But maybe you could talk about the thinking big. When is it too much? When do you know you're onto something? How do you, maybe the most important question, especially considering the context of startups, how do you convince that the potential client or investor that these steps of thinking big are the right ways? How did you convince people about that?
Yeah, so I think it is as well like think big, but stay humble, right? And I think that's a little bit like what you were saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's a difference between really like being passionate about like what your great idea can like bring to the society, can bring to businesses and things like that. But it's different if you say like, well, this is what it's going to be. And sorry, I'm like using too much my hands now.
No worries.
No, but this is what it's gonna be, and just like be like yeah, I said humble, but as well like it's an agile road to your vision, to your thinking big. So of course you need to shape an ambition, you need to really make clear like what it is that it could be, but we don't know for sure. And this is where I mean like you need to be humble, also like still like know that you will be learning. But I think if you're looking for investors or partners, you have to have that vision, because that's where they will buy into or getting excited to help you.
So I learn a lot from stories, and I love what you're saying, but do you have like a story where you can shape the thinking big but staying humble and how it paid off down the line?
Yeah, so well, back to my own startup then, right? Because that's easier to talk about.
Yeah.
The family link was with my business partner. She was from the US, and she thought that I was really thinking too big, because you need to as well like to make numbers. So we needed to really look at like how many aging people, and there's big numbers. And if you would go to China, so you can do different scenarios. But then you come in like the potential value can be in millions and millions. If you really say like very modest, then you are just thinking in maybe a few millions. But you need to be bold as well, like to get like the right partners. And the other thing was like a roadmap, because you can start, as I said, like with the social interaction, but like what's then the value going to be? The real value is where you have like maybe medical reminders, where you add that to your vision to really be the social portal for seniors, and not only for seniors, but as well for the family members, where they can easily update calendars, bring in reminders, even think about cameras or monitors for like when you fall, but all in a nice and social way. So it was really like putting that vision of starting with social like social interaction connection towards adding more and more caring elements in the portal, and even like having your concierge, all these concepts that are now very normal but at that time were less, were all like part of that bigger vision. And that's what really helped in getting like early money investment, but also we were invited to LA, UCLA, to be like part of a panel. That's where also, so maybe it's also not having a vision, but really have like some thought leadership in the area that you are really want to be a game changer. Because if you become a thought leader, then also like doors will open. So UCLA, we had Stanford University as well, like geriatric care, also partnering with us in early stage. We got like an advisory board. But if you wouldn't have had a vision and a bold vision, then nobody, or not nobody, but like not that many people would be to be part of our group.
You actually said that at the beginning of what you were saying just now, where you said something that really stood out for me, which is if you don't have something bold, then people won't follow it. So, and then obviously you're saying it right now as well, like because you guys went so bold, suddenly you became a thought leader. So does that mean that just because you guys started thinking big, that people started picking up on that? Is it a little bit like fake it till you make it, or what is it exactly?
If I would say, yeah, well, it's a little bit of like, well, believing in what you do. Well, it's a combination because thinking big alone, but you need to do your research, you need to get your proofs of concept, you need to show that it's also like a real thing, right? Because otherwise it's only faking. So it's really, as well, like really putting effort in understanding, having what do you say, interviews with the real users, the consumers. Remember, like in the beginning of our interview, I as well started saying, like, listen, it's really key that you have the customer in mind or the users, and you can gather proof with it as well. Back to my startup, we were like talking to different seniors and created videos as well, like that they were expressing what they thought like that was needed to really make them feel more comfortable staying longer at home. For instance, we did a lot of research on numbers. We partnered with what they call the baby boomer summit, which was as well like really focusing on how can we help that generation to stay longer at home. So these kind of things. So it's not only like on the paper, but also do your work, do your research. And gather proof points, and even if it's a prototype or interviews, but everything that helps to make it as well, like again, the people will believe that it's really, that it could become true, that there's a big chance that it becomes reality.
So it's very much about you drive yourself by thinking as big as you can, and then finding the proof and all the research and everything you just mentioned to back that claim up as well.
Yeah.
And so a lot of startups will probably ask it. Well, definitely I'm asking it right now. So is that pretty much the formula for you to become a thought leader, or what was it that you did that suddenly Stanford like invites you and the UCLA invites you for a panel? Like, did you reach out to them, or how do they pick up on those things?
Yeah, it's a combination as well, right? Like it's being out there, but I think it is creating your vision or your thoughts on like how you could help or make the world a better place. That I think it's always my personal mission is to use innovation or technology to do or to help others to do better, right? So and if you create that vision and articulate it, which I was just explaining about Family Link, do research, start to write articles, blogs about it, then people will pick up on it. The same on, if you take another, the social selling, the book that I wrote before writing the book, even I was like posting things about like really like you're having an opinion or a view, like your point of view, what, like yeah, how you would like to help or achieve things or do better. But then, you need to just be out there, and I found that in the beginning as well pretty difficult. I mean, I just not like even my kids are like, "Mom, you're out there again. You're a narcissist." I said, "No, I'm not a narcissist. It's the way that I can like people can find me because it's the reality, right? If you just stay, if I stay in between the four walls, nobody's gonna find me. So you need to just be out there, especially in the times of social media." And same for now in the job where I am in retail, it's really thinking about like what will help retailers to do better business. How can they accelerate it? And with Microsoft, you have a point of view, and how can we articulate that, and as well like make sure that people see it. But I think you're doing a good job on that as well yourself.
Yeah, but actually, we had the wholesale director from Mango Fashion on a couple episodes back, but you're already kind of touching a point that I wanted to discuss with what is, from a Microsoft point of view, which I saw the stock, it went crazy up during Corona. So how has it been like during these times, and how have you been doing your function in a way to get out there more and establish, I guess, your function and being a thought leader and everything you just mentioned. How in these times are you doing that?
Yeah, I think it's all about like switching gears, right? Like even like what you're doing now with Impact Talks is like doing it remotely instead of like waiting till there's time that you can be all like together in the studio. So it's really using remote ways like that. Like for Microsoft, it's Teams, like the whole like way of operating, using digital, finding different ways of like still having a connection with people, virtual coffees, sometimes virtual Friday parties, really creating new things to really stay in touch with the people that you want to work with or help with. We did as well like a series of webinars very early on. Now there are so many webinars, but really as well like, okay, what can we do? Round tables, things like that. And you mentioned like the like Microsoft stock, but I think the stock was already like going up because as well like the investment in like the cloud helping customers with digital transformation and really changing our culture and the way we are interacting. But if you look at the COVID, it really again broke through different habits. Everybody was working remotely, and that's one of the key areas that we offer solutions and help customers with.
How's it been like for you at the office? Just
My
like,
office.
yeah, like I mean, it's been pretty crazy. We already kind of were going digital before Corona hit. But I mean, I've seen from super chaotic to, yeah, we kind of were about to do that anyway, so now we're faster. So, what was happening with you personally and in your office and the teams?
Yeah, so I think like at Microsoft, we are digital. We dream. Everything we almost do is digital. So I think that change was not that big, right? But in being part of the Western Europe organization, working with different teams, face to face is what I'm missing because it's still like a screen is okay, but you also have to be like feel like being together in a room. So that part was like a little bit like it was missing, but I think the switch to remote working has been very easy, and you see that with the other companies. Like take the example of for instance Starbucks, who were already like digital, were much quicker in adapting to new models. So that's also what brings technology or like being prepared and knowing your customer and switching from one day to the other. Our own retail stores is also I think an interesting example. We have the few flagship stores where like in 10 days the whole team was working remotely assisting consumers and customers.
Really?
Like,
Can you tell more about that?
Well, I cannot tell you the whole like the ins and outs, but what really it's just really like being quickly in adapting and switching from like being in the store, working from home, and using technology like Teams then in this case to be in contact with customers. And even now the last announcement, and I think that's also for startups, my advice would be quick and be agile because that's the way to succeed. But what I think is also very interesting is that like our stores now, like the employees will remain assisting customers but remotely. So they will not we will not do that in the stores anymore. The stores will become much more like an interaction and experience centers. So, and that's all like about like taking learnings and react very fast to that. And maybe another interesting part of for like the Netherlands, like the office in the Netherlands where I'm also like a part of. 2 years ago, when I was just a few months in, we closed our offices for 3 months. Nobody could go to the office. So we already had a preparation, I would say, but from other reasons, because we were remodeling our whole office to become even like more the new collaboration, the new meeting place where customers were welcome, partners are welcome, and you really go to the office more to meet people than to just sit at your desk. We also have the space, but it's really being that. But I found that very interesting, this 3 months that everybody was as well like just find different ways to work. Go to work at the customer. Work with from a coffee shop. Find your teams in different places. Was already, I think, kind of a very good preparation. So long answer, but we were pretty quick in just returning to work. So not that chaotic.
And did you find that there was a difference in either generation or people that come from different locations in adapting to just stopping the work, or do you feel like people who work at Microsoft, they kind of understand and get it?
Yeah, I think more the last one, and I also think it's not that much in generations. It's more, well, if you talk about the elderly people that had like no iPhones and that they had, but also now you see like the adoption of like devices, online shopping and so on is like increasing with all the people as well. So the cultures, I have to say, it's different, but very difficult for me to really see. But the countries I've worked with, people were all like, okay, we even had like whole day meetings, but then you adjust because you cannot sit a whole day behind your screen. We did like breaks between like 45 minutes, use polls. But what I was amazed, and that's not only about Microsoft, but also with everyone and customers, is the flexibility of like humans, like the way of like, and as well like the kindness, like the being like more open, like the like accepting that maybe a dog will bark, that somebody like has to have the baby because we couldn't bring the babies away. So it was also like a very special, it still is a very special time.
I like that. Yeah, I agree. I have to say, as an introvert, it was one of the best times, even though it was a really bad time. I had real trouble when we started, introducing flexible working back again, going back to the office. So as an introvert, it was a different experience. But my girlfriend, on the other hand, was an extrovert, and so she loved it. So we had two completely different reactions when everything got closed and when everything got opened up.
You're like, oh, I need to get back.
Yeah. But I want to ask you a couple more questions, audience-related questions. But before I do that, was there a specific topic that you wanted to discuss? Or, yeah.
Well, I think you're covering. I think it's about like the innovation, the digital transformation, the breaking through habits, and like how can we really leverage technology, but in a human way, right? Like, and I think we have been already touching quite a bit of that as well.
Yeah. How do you make it more personal, actually? You guys were working on Microsoft Teams, which became super relevant during Corona. So how do you keep, closing down the office for 3 months, how do you keep that interaction still going? And, because the meeting place isn't enough. So what did you do to keep the personality going with clients and with teams? How was it different between the two?
Yeah, so I think it is about like the personal connection, and that's one of the learnings that I had from like the closing 2 years ago, is that like normally then like when you have an interaction, it's always an interaction with a business objective. So I'm gonna call you and we have this topics and boom, boom, boom. So I think what is important is that you also reach out to people with not like directly a business, like if you would like take a coffee or you see each other at the water cooler, right? Like really say, just checking in, like how are you, what's going on, and not only about like, oh, we need to like really think about this great idea or do this. So that's one thing, and that's what I mentioned it. What I've seen and what was really as well fun was the virtual coffees. So we had with our team in Western Europe virtual coffee. And in the beginning you think, does that make sense? But also you had the opportunity to meet people that you normally would not meet because they are in different offices. So it was also like, as an extrovert, I really liked to see like even like meet more people that I normally would not like see. So that was another thing. Yeah, I think you can do a lot of also like mindset. Not mindset, but like mindfulness. There was like as well offering. Microsoft was offering mindfulness, virtual yoga. So also like taking taking care of the personal factor, right? And I think that makes a difference. We also had like some more speakers internally. They were also like sharing thoughts on leadership, but then digital. So one of the things is, so that's really, so it's a combination and not only like think business then.
I like that because it's a great way to reconnect with all the virtual coffees. I have been doing that way less, I have to say. But on the other side, we went completely digital around February, 2 weeks before Corona hit. So what we do is just every week we have team meetings, and then the sub teams have their meetings. Like one has on Monday, another one on Wednesday, that type of thing. But really interesting. So I had a couple of maybe also personal questions, but it keeps popping up, and it's very hard for me to answer the questions that pop up. And the question is, so you have a ton of experience with marketing. You were CMO at some companies. You've built communities. When a startup starts, obviously they need to become a thought leader, like you said, but also what they actually need is they need to gain users, they need to gain community members, all these type of things. And my question to you is, do you have like practical advice, on what if a company's starting now, or they've been hit with Corona and they have to go digital? How do they get users? How do they get community members? What is the best strategy? Is it advertising? Is it PR? Is it just cold calling? Like, how would you handle it?
So it's unfortunately that I don't have the secret sauce, right? I wish there was like one formula that everybody could use. But my thing would be, again, like start like understanding your target audience. Who are the users that you're going after, and why are you going after? Because you have a value to offer. So, and also what is the value proposition? So I think it is a lot, like I would say, spend time in understanding your target audience, because what are they doing? Where are they? Who is influencing them? Where are they searching for content? What is the message that will resonate? And sometimes in your target audience, take for instance, for me, the big companies, it's very different if you talk to the chief HR or the chief finance officer. So it's really about thinking different in that sense, like really making sure you target the different audiences. So when you understand like who your target audience is, then you can build like your marketing strategy.
So can you go maybe a little bit deeper and maybe give an example of a company that you went into and maybe had to build it from scratch?
Yeah, so one was with on marketing automation, and not from scratch, but really as well like spending time like from a technology company, we often target IT first, which is good. But I think again, if you really want to accelerate or help with transforming and innovation, it cannot only be IT, it cannot only be technology. It needs to as well to include the business value and the business, right? So for this company, we really had to target as well like the chief marketing officers and the marketing organization. But like, how do you do that then? And it's really thinking and like understanding, when is a chief marketing officer successful? What are the business outcomes that the person that you're targeting is driving, right? Like so you help that they become successful, like they achieve their goals. And if you understand that better, then you can as well make sure that your messaging are relevant and resonates to the marketing, the CMO. And one of the things what I always have in mind is like, why it's all about managing change as well, like your customer, right? Why do they need to change? Why do they need to do business with you? What are trends that you see in the market that everybody understands? And then say like, okay, this is coming to you. These are your like the business outcomes. Why do you need to talk to me? Same with partnerships again, right? And how do you gonna then prove value? And also my advice would be then as well, like make sure that you speak the language of your target audience. And it sounds very easy, but like in tech companies, often we think data, we think bits, we think everything, but that's maybe not the language of the HR person or the marketing person. So understand that there are different perspectives and that you need to make sure that you appeal to them.
Do you do a lot of virtual coffees to get to know the target audience? Do you test it by spending a lot of money on ads? Like, what is the best way to do it, you think?
Well, it depends on, like, I think if you go back to old models, it's still, lucky enough, they still work, right? Like, look at, like, first, like, you need to get attention, awareness, interest, and desire. Awareness is like find your customers where they are. It could be advertising, but even better if it's earned advertising or PR because you have the thought leadership. And then interest and desire, but I think before that even I always like if I do if I enter a new role, I will just start like talking to customers and maybe not right my target customer, but similar or as people in the company, because I need to understand how they look at me or the company, what their thoughts are, what is relevant, what are the key priorities, and to make sure that there is a fit. And that what I want to offer relates to what they say. So the other advice would be like, don't go in with like one like offer that this is it, right? Like I think you asked as well, like do you have like different options? But really think like listen first to the customer. And I know it's an open door, but we often are so excited that we already start like, hey, we can do this, and we forget to listen. And I think if you really also create partnerships with your customers, you can achieve much more.
Yeah, I agree. It's very hard to learn as well. It comes with experience, I think. But, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, I think it comes with experience, but as well, you could like measure yourself, because I also like data metrics, like see in a conversation, like how much time do you talk versus are you listening to the customer?
That's a good one, actually. Are there apps like that?
Probably, yeah. I wish it was possible, right? Like I think it would be good, like to have like just measuring. You know, somebody actually it was my father-in-law when I did my first job interviews. He said like if you talk 10% and they talk 90%, you did a great job. And that always remains with me because now I'm talking way too much, but that's because you're now interviewing me. But it is true. It's okay not to talk if you have the smart questions, and you can or later come back. You don't have to have everything in that one meeting. You can just then use that information and really come with something smart afterwards. Or if you're in a startup stage, like further refine what you're working on. Really. Yeah, work as much as you can with your target audience, not only from a marketing perspective.
I feel like, I mean, you are Microsoft, so maybe that's a function you should implement into Microsoft Teams where it says like, okay, now, I'm talking, and it's like, like in chess when you click,
yeah,
and then it automatically tracks how much you're in screen, how much the other person is in screen, and that way you know who's talking the most. It'd be great for sales calls.
No, I like it, and I mean I will like bring up the idea that we were discussing, because we also have something what we call like modern workplace analytics, which really as well like shows you, and it's all like only for you and not and the manager levels. They can then see more like the bigger numbers, but you can see with who did you network, with who did you reach out, how much time did you spend on your computer, just focus time. So there are all these kind of metrics that will help you to become aware what the things that you are doing well, or maybe where you could, well, you can always like decide yourself, but what you can learn from. And this one, I think, is as good as a good one as well. Like back to diversity and inclusion. I think I spoke a bit already about diverse, like different perspectives, but it also. You only can have that, but you also need to listen to each other. And one of the things that I try, and I'm not always always very good at this, but really if I'm in a meeting with different people, I always want everyone to have like had a chance to have their say. But that also, like, you could measure that. Am I really doing that, or is it just my intention?
I legitimately think it'd be a really good function on Microsoft Teams or whatever. Just like literally like chess. Like you know how many
Yeah.
seconds everybody is. I mean, I understand what you're saying because we use productivity trackers as well for our staff. And there's like a lot out there like Time Doctor and Hubstaff and all of those. But this is different. This is like, this would be great for sales or for
Yeah.
managers or coaches. And the only thing you have to kind of add, obviously I'm not a coder, so I wouldn't know, but I'm assuming it's just like a tracker on the screen,
Yeah.
and it just
Who
shows
speaks?
you talked this much and this person talked this much. And then,
Yeah.
especially in COVID times, you could just use that. So if there's a startup listening and Microsoft hasn't implemented it yet, you know, there's an
Yeah, and
opportunity.
No, exactly. And I think you say sales, but I also really think for diversity and inclusion, it's
Yeah.
awesome.
Exactly,
Because that's
especially
like
if you're a
a-
manager and you have
Yeah.
a diverse team, and then you say that you know you're not biased, but somehow you tend to only listen to the white people, and then it's like data telling you you
Yeah.
do listen only to like the men and the whites. So
Yeah.
it's like please let me know if it'll happen. But I think it's cool.
Yeah.
I
and
didn't think about it that way.
Yeah, it reminds me about fluent leadership, which is like now getting more attention, and it's about like having open for different perspectives, the ability to work with different people, and being like as well like, I mean, I think everyone is biased, but like be conscious of your bias and like act on it, right? To make it like
Yeah.
unbiased.
I think in the meantime, probably to catch my bias, what I can do is probably just keep a stopwatch and then just every time I talk, click. Has to be a quiet one though.
Let me know.
But no, I like that. We're slowly kind of coming to the end. We have to wrap up, but I do have some kind of closing questions as well. I always ask what kind of books you're reading currently, and if there were any books that you could recommend to our listeners.
So I think the one is about like ethical AI. I need to like think it's The Future Decoded. I think it's from Microsoft, but it was really like interesting because I think it's artificial intelligence comes with many opportunities, but you need to do it like thoughtful and with ethical thinking. That's one. Then it's the book Heavy, which is a personal book. It's about a black boy growing up in the U.S. With like how he looks at things. I think I was already reading it before because it's kind of it's a good book, but you cannot read it at once. But it's really good, like to have as well like learning from different perspectives and like how is life if you are 12 year. Like a little bit like a big boy in with a dark skin, which I thought was a very so these are the two main that I've been like reading lately, and then I do of course like a lot of podcasts, a lot of like listening to YouTube, and that's all different aspects. And one of the other things is like the new leadership, but like how can you be as a leader, be more inclusive, be more open for innovation and things like that.
I like that. And then maybe last question, if we have, I think we still have some time, but last question, what are you currently doing or learning not related to business that gives you energy? So not related to business.
What am I learning? So that's what gives me energy. Well, it's a lot of like related to business, right? Like the leadership, the new, like the whole, like the unconscious bias, to be more aware of that. I had some things on my list that I wanted to, but I didn't really like yet do it. It has to do with boating because I'm not good in like sailing. And like recently with the beautiful weather, I went on the boat, but I had to go on an electric little boat, and I cannot sail. So that's on my wish list still, like to be better on and really how you say it, like not driving a boat, but like boating.
Yeah, sailing a boat.
sailing a boat. So yeah, sailing a boat, and as well like maybe even a bigger boat than the little one that's okay for a tourist.
Nice, I like that. I think it's also a great way to leave it on on a easy breeze. I don't know if that's a great pun, but it was super nice to catch up with you again. I really liked it. And also I think it was so relevant for many people to get to know you better than those super quick conversations that we had on the big stage. So I'm really happy that you came on. Anything last you want to say? If not.
Well, if not, no. I just because you mentioned the stage, I hope that we can return not like as it was before, but more as well like in a hybrid way, right? Because I also see like people like left or right. So now we are like people were a little bit like not willing to work remotely. We had to go to the office, all of this. Now we are all remote, but I think we need a combination. We need to think fluid and as well like in hybrid. So I hope. Because I was like thinking back, like on the stage and with the big the energy of the people present. I hope we will be able to do that anytime soon again.
Yeah, I agree, and definitely what I'm taking away is like how you guys are doing it as a membership kind of meeting place and community meeting place, the office, instead of just like mindlessly going to the office every time.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Thank you so much for coming on, and hope to see you soon.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was a nice conversation. Thank you. Bye.
If you liked this episode, you can check out our most recent one here. And if you haven't already, make sure you click here to subscribe and see the next one. But if you're interested in more tips and tricks, then make sure to join our Facebook group where you can find thousands of like-minded people and you get direct access and support to any business question from the entire startup funding event team.